Yo, what's good? So today I'm back with a video and I'm going to be finally telling you all of the clan buffs. These are the passive buffs and I'll also explain the moves that the rare and legendary clans get. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
Slick talker since a jet. Winter time, all the time, ooh, yeah. Look at the way that I move, swag, disrespectful and I'm rude, okay.
So before anyone asks, the game that I am playing, this is just background footage. It's from a game called Tales from the Valley, and I'll leave the link in the description. Alright, so these are all the obtainable clans in the game that you can get from rolling. So commons are 80%, uncommons are 27%, rares are 2.5%, and legendaries are 0.5%. So I'm going to start off by telling you all the common clan buffs, and then all the uncommon clan buffs, then the rares, then the legendaries, etc, etc. I'll also be telling you the legendary, telling you what moves legendary clans and rare clans get. So yeah, let's go. Also, I'm just going to explain something. So usually the bigger the buff is, then the bigger the debuff will be on the clan in another stat. This isn't the case all the time, but it's just to balance things out. So yeah. So if it's got a smaller buff, then it will have a smaller debuff as well. So yeah. So first off, we've got the Orochi clan. It's got a pretty good endurance buff, but it has a slight speed debuff. It's only small. Next up, we've got Metsudo. So Metsudo has a stamina buff, and it's got a stamina buff. It's because they're called boosts, so I accidentally said that. Yeah, it's got a small stamina buff, and it's got a small speed debuff. Next up, we've got Ryuki. So Ryuki, similar to Metsudo, it has a stamina buff and a small speed debuff. Next up, we have Ali. Ali has a slight endurance buff and a slight speed debuff. Next up is Koga. Koga, let me find it. Koga has a damage buff and a small stamina debuff. Raian. Where is it? Let me find it. Raian. Right, Raian. Raian has a pretty decent combat speed buff, no debuffs. Next up we got Yotsuba. Yotsuba has a stamina buff, speed debuff. Next up we got Ichijou. Ichijou has a damage buff and a small stamina debuff. Reinhold has where is it? Reinhold has a endurance buff and a speed debuff. Next up is Wongsawat. Wongsawat has a combat speed buff, no debuffs. Dorado. Dorado has a combat speed buff, small one, no debuffs. Gensai's got a damage buff and a speed buff, both small, no debuffs. Agito has a combat speed buff, no debuffs. Kaioh? I'm not sure. It has a small damage buff, small combat speed buff, no debuffs. Hanayama, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, has an endurance buff, a small speed debuff. Shibukawa. These names are not easy to pronounce. It has a small damage buff, small speed buff. Takugawa has the same as Shibukawa, sorry. Kirin clan has... Oh, Kirin clan's pretty good. It's got a decently big speed buff. Damn. It's got a pretty good speed buff, and it's got a good endurance buff, no debuffs. Show has a damage buff, small stamina debuff. And that's all for the commons. Now we're going to be moving on to the uncommons. So first up on the uncommons, we've got Takamura. Takamura has, if I can find it, Takamura. Takamura has a... Oh, it's got an EXP multiplier. So you get 0.2 permanent EXP. So it's basically... You're going to be leveling up fast if you're a Takamura. Pickle Clan is next. Pickle Clan is... It's got a big endurance buff, big damage buff, but then in return it has stamina debuff, combat speed debuff, and speed debuff. So it's definitely a tanky class, or clan, whatever you want to call it. Next up is Oliva, whatever you want to call it. It's got a big endurance buff, pretty good damage buff, and it's got a stamina debuff. Next is Hoshi. Hoshi is... where is it? Hoshi has a damage buff and a combat speed buff, both small, no debuffs. Virgo has a... Same as Hoshi. Damage buff, combat speed buff, no debuffs. Medel. If I'm not wrong, this is a pretty tanky one. No, I am wrong. It has a big speed boost, really big speed boost. Well, not really, but it's pretty big. It's a big speed boost. I'm lying. But it's got a stamina debuff and a damage debuff. Yeah, I don't know why people who are Mikato always cry about it being bad. It literally has no debuffs. I'm looking at it right now. It has 0 debuffs. I thought it had a small damage debuff, but it has 0 debuffs at all, Mikato. But Medel does. So, if you're a Mikato's always cried. They just cry about stuff, man. I don't know why. Cry about it. You're just better at the game, bro. No, I'm joking. But next up is Mikazuchi. Mikazuchi has, I think it's the biggest speed buff in the game. And it's got a big stamina buff, but it has a big endurance debuff. So they're pretty squishy. Next up is Wu. Wu has a pretty good stamina buff. No debuffs. Oh, that's not WOO, by the way. It's WU. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but yeah. So, Raiden has a big endurance buff, pretty good combat speed buff, but it's also got a damage debuff and a stamina debuff. So, yeah. Next up is Lionheart. So, Lionheart has, similar to Pickle, endurance buff, damage buff, both big, but it's got stamina, combat speed, and speed debuffs. So, yeah, it's a tanky one. Next up is, hold on, typing in the wrong place. Akanori. Akanori has big endurance buff, pretty good combat speed buff, but a damage and a stamina debuff. Next up is Musashi. Musashi? Yeah, Musashi has... Oh, endurance buff, combat speed buff, but damage and stamina debuff. Musashi... Oh, we already did. Did I just do Musashi? Did I just repeat myself? Yeah, I did. I'm pretty sure. Next up is Sparticus. Sparticus has damage buff, pretty big damage buff, combat speed buff, but a speed debuff. And Howl is pretty much the same as Sparticus, so yeah. Final one is Babatunde for the uncommons. The best clan in the game, I'm joking. It has a pretty good endurance buff, no debuffs. So that's it for uncommons. Next up is rare clans. So for rare clans, we got Jin, Wu, Akuma, Lee, Mikato, Hanma, Ippo, Sengoku, and Kure. All of these come with moves, like skills that you can get in game. So their passive buffs aren't going to be as good as like uncommons and stuff. Well, they're still good, but you get what I mean. So Jin has a speed boost and a combat speed boost. Combat speed boost? Yeah, combat speed boost. Nothing insane, but it's got no debuffs, but the buffs aren't that big anyway. Jin comes with like resurrection. When you get knocked, you can get up with 50% of your health, and I think it gives you some stat buffs whilst you're in the mode. You get like a little crown and your eye glows. You've probably already seen it. I'm not going to show a clip because I already made a video. I'll put it in the top right. You can click here. Yeah, I already made a video where I showed all of the clan buffs and stuff. So, yeah. Next up, we got... What do we got? We got Woo. W-O-W-O-O. So, Woo gets, like, basically the Zin dodges, Ultra Instinct. You can dodge, like, moves for, like, 20 seconds. I'm not sure how long it is. But, yeah, M2 will still hit you, though. They get a small endurance buff and a speed buff, obviously. Next up is Akuma. Akuma used to be really, really busted, but the buffs got like nerfed, but they got more buffs when they were in their awakening mode, which makes sense. So yeah, their endurance gets boosted and their damage gets boosted. No debuffs. I don't think the rare clans have debuffs. They just have like small buffs. Oh, they're pretty decent buffs, but yeah. Lee clan is next. Lee clan gets like a Chi Blast move, like from Dragon Ball Z, and it procs fire. They have a combat speed buff, stamina buff, and a speed buff. No debuffs. Mikato up next. Like I was saying earlier, people always complain about Mikato for some reason, saying that they're so squishy and stuff. When it never took health, it used to take. It used to have like a debuff on damage, a really small one, and for some reason, like, people were just crying, and in reality, it's just because they have bad stats. Saying that they're squishy and stuff when they have superb endurance, like, I don't know if you expect to be Superman with that, but Mikato has a pretty big speed buff, no debuffs, which makes sense, they're a speed clan. Hanma oh yeah, by the way, Mikato gets like a little flash step passive that replaces their normal dash. Hanma gets demon back. You can use it when you're below a certain amount of health. It's getting a buff, Hanma is, because the demon back isn't really that great at the minute, but yeah. They get a damage buff, an endurance buff, no debuffs. Next is Ippo. Ippo's also getting a buff. Their move is getting a buff. But right now, it's like they get like a lightning cloak, and it gives them infinite stamina for a certain amount of time. But it's getting buffed because it's pretty trash right now. I think it gives some other buffs when they're in it, but it's pretty underwhelming compared to the others. So yeah. Ippo gets combat speed buff, stamina buff, and a speed debuff. Oh. Well, there you go. It's pretty small though, but yeah. Next up, we got Sengoku. Sengoku has a move called Intimidate, where it stuns everyone and makes them like run back from you, and it's really good because you can combo, like, extend combos with it. They have a damage buff, speed buff, and a combat speed debuff. What's next? We got Kure. I think Kure's also getting a buff. I'm not sure. Kure gets removal, obviously. It's like it passively drains health when they're using it though. But yeah, by the way, all of these buffs for all the clans, they stack on top of what your stats already are, so it like breaks the caps. Kure gets damage buff, speed debuff, combat speed buff, and that's all for the rare clans. Next up, we got legendary clans. There's two: Sin and Veritas. So, Sin. Oh, this is going to be hard to find. I just realized. Hold on. Oh, Sin. Sin gets a big damage buff. I guess endurance buff, combat speed buff, stamina buff, no debuffs. Obviously, these are legendary clans, so they're going to be better. Veritas has a speed buff, stamina buff, damage buff. Wow, legendary clans have good buffs. Damn. But I'm not gonna lie, the legendary, like, Veritas, like, really, it's more of a utility clan, so it makes sense that they get better passives, because it's basically just like an ESP. Like, they can see your health and your stamina. It's like Bakugan. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Byakugan. I'm not sure. Like Hyuga clan. But yeah. And Sin's buffs aren't really as big as Veritas, but it's still a pretty good clan. So yeah, that was all the clan buffs. I hope you oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, legendary clans. Yeah, so Veritas gets the ESP thing, and Sin gets like a it's basically crescent kick. It sends everyone in the air, and then whilst they're in the air, it does like deadly uppercut on them, the karate move. So you teleport into the air and hit them, and it procs fire. So yeah. But that's all for the legendary clan video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, share, whatever. This video took a while to make, so I'd appreciate the support. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Peace out.